Hello everyone, this is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfic. This will be the continuation of Swallow the Stars. This will be Part 15, Chapter 15, entitled A Celebration. Hitoshi's birthday lands on a Friday this year, which he's upset about at first until he receives a text from Aizawa-san on the morning of. Izuku tells me it's your birthday. We can skip today's training if you want to spend time with your family. Don't want to skip, but I would feel bad if I don't get to spend at least a little time with them. Let's push the training back 2 hours. We can go longer if needed. Thank you. You're welcome, and happy birthday. Thanks, and is it okay if Izuku comes home with me after school? I think Mom's expecting him to be here. He just whooped so loud that the cats ran under the sofa, so yes, he can go with you. So he can't be upset anymore, which is just fine with him. The house is its usual mess as everyone gets ready for jobs and school, and his dad is even home to sleep the day away before the casual family only, plus Izuku now, party tonight. And school isn't even so bad. Hasn't been bad since Hisashi-san got the principal fired and many of the other teachers were given a stern talking to or whatever. Hitoshi doesn't care how it happened. He's just glad that it did. Because now, the worst that happens is that no one talks to him except for Izuku, and he really couldn't give two shits about that. And Izuku is probably the best thing that's ever happened to Hitoshi. It's a very close tie in his head between being Izuku's friend and training with Aizawa, although the latter would never have happened without the former, so maybe Izuku should just win by default. They spend the whole day together, obviously because they're in the same class, but it feels like he needs to make note of that because it hasn't yet stopped being amazing that someone wants to be his friend and talk to him and share quick words in JSL when the teacher's back is turned. Izuku gives him strawberry daifuku during lunch with a very serious promise that Hisashi-san had made them and Izuku had merely assisted. Hitoshi's never seen Izuku cook and has never been subjected to his cooking, but he fully believes that he's bad at it if Aizawa-san says so. Hitoshi has a feeling that Aizawa-san could eat just about anything, and Izuku's attempts at cooking are apparently a hard no from him. At the last bell of the day, Izuku jumps to his feet, slinging his bag over his shoulder. Hitoshi just raises an eyebrow and slowly puts his own things away. Why do you seem more excited about my birthday than I am? He asks, getting to his feet and grabbing his own bag. Because I got you a really great present and I want you to open it, Izuku says as he grabs Hitoshi's sleeve and all but drags him out of the classroom. You got me something? So Hitoshi had gotten Izuku a present for his birthday, a large pack of multicolored pens so that Izuku could color-code his analysis notebooks if he wanted to, as well as some mochi cookies that he had baked himself. But that doesn't mean that he'd been expecting anything from Izuku. Izuku gives him this look then, a soft mixture of sadness and understanding that Hitoshi would hate coming from literally anyone else. But he knows that Izuku's had a rough past. He is admitted to only living with Aizawa-san since last year, and it's hard to miss the way Izuku flinches away from contact if he doesn't have time to mentally prepare himself for it. Privately, Hitoshi wants to track down whatever shitty parents or orphanage or whoever raised Izuku so that he can give them a piece of his goddamn mind, but outwardly, he makes sure to watch Izuku carefully when he wants to reach out to him, to rap his knuckles against Izuku's desk if he needs his attention or a silent conversation, to not pull away if Izuku initiates contact first. Hitoshi hopes that Izuku will tell him what happened in his own time, but he's also fine not knowing. He doesn't need every last detail about Izuku's life to know that they're friends, plus he really isn't sure if he'll be able to restrain himself from going on a killing spree if he ever finds out, and he's worked too hard to become a hero to turn to villainy now. He would in a heartbeat, though, if Izuku asked. So it's a very good thing he knows that Izuku would never do that. Yeah, Izuku says, and his smile is affectionate, but no less bright than usual. Of course I got you a gift. I really think you'll like it. Hitoshi pushes Izuku's face away. Don't look at me like that, I'll blush. He says, completely deadpan and not blushing at all. Not to say that he hasn't before, but right now, nah. He's working really hard on building up immunity to Izuku's brightness, even if Izuku's smiles make him feel like a vampire stepping out into direct sunlight sometimes. Izuku laughs, tipping his head back as the sound runs through his whole body. He really wears his heart on his sleeve, and it's something Hitoshi admires as much as he's intimidated by it. He could never be that emotionally vulnerable, it's just not who he is, but Izuku does it all the time, without thought. Punching a bully comes as easily to him as laughing, and it's nothing shy of amazing, in Hitoshi's opinion. They walk out of the building with Izuku still clinging to Hitoshi's sleeve, and Hitoshi doesn't pull away until they're out of the school grounds. He's quick to reestablish contact, with his forearm draping over Izuku's nearest shoulder, though, as he leans into him, keeps his eyes up to check their surroundings. He's learned his lesson. Not only has Aizawa-san spent several Saturdays ambushing Hitoshi around the apartment, but he'd given Izuku permission to ambush him at school too, so yeah, between a capture weapon and Izuku's pen caps flying at him, he's learned to keep his eyes up. Cat memes and social media can be enjoyed in the safety of his home. "Is everyone going to be there today?" Izuku asks. His hands are in his pockets, and his posture reminds Hitoshi of Aizawa-san so much that it's scary. Even the look in his eyes as he tracks the movement of other school kids walking home is the same. It's fucking eerie. If you didn't know for sure that Izuku is Aizawa-san's son, he'd certainly be guessing it. Hitoshi turns his eyes back to the stretch of road in front of them and nods. Dad even asked for the day off, specifically so that he could be here. He does that for every birthday for all of us. Maki's going to be a little late because of her commute, but she'll be on time for dinner. He glances at Izuku just quick enough to read his mood. "You know, she mentioned giving you that haircut you asked about last time you—" "Really?" The excitement bursts from Izuku like a popped glitter bomb, scattering out over the pavement and echoing down the street. "That would be so— But it's your birthday." His voice draws back at the same time that he stops bouncing on his toes. "I don't want to interrupt that." Hitoshi shrugs. He couldn't be any more unconcerned if he tried. "It doesn't bother me. Birthdays are less about celebrating and more about just being there with my family. We eat the person's favorite food and give gifts, but it's mostly just family time led by the birthday haver. Plus, you don't come over often, so I think she'll want to do it when she knows you'll be here for more than just a 30-minute cram study session." "If you're sure." "I'm sure." Hitoshi adjusts his weight so that he's leaning more firmly on Izuku's shoulder, tipping both of them off balance as they walk. It makes Izuku laugh, which was the whole point. "You know, our friendship isn't that fragile, right? You'd have to pull some crazy shit to fuck this up, and even then I might just take your side anyway." Izuku turns to look at him like he hung the fucking stars in the sky, and that's almost worse than the sun-filled smiles he throws around every 10 minutes. "I think that's the first time you've called me your friend out loud," Izuku says, light and breathy and already tipping into another laugh. "Is it?" Izuku had declared them friends on day one, and Hitoshi had just gone along with it completely unopposed. He frowns, wondering if he messed up somewhere along the line. "Thought I didn't have to say it. Figured it was obvious." That pushes the building laugh from Izuku's lips, and he reaches up and grabs Hitoshi's hand, where it's draping off of his shoulder. "I mean," he starts, still grinning, "I guess it kind of is obvious, but it's still nice to hear it." This, too, is something that Hitoshi understands about Izuku without having to ask. The undercurrent of uncertainty, not knowing where you stand with people unless they say it explicitly, and even then carrying a seed of doubt about their intentions. He should have known better. Should have said something prior to today. "Izuku," he says, ready to make up for his mistake. "You're my best friend. The best friend I've ever had." Izuku squeezes his fingers, comfort and reassurance all rolled into one. "You're mine too," he says. Hitoshi's never doubted that for a second. The rest of the journey to Hitoshi's home passes quickly. The train is rather full, but Izuku keeps his attention easily by talking about a new comic book that he's reading and breaking down the characters the way he does other people, which is always fascinating to Hitoshi because no matter how hard he tries, or how good he gets at the analysis homework he does for Aizawa, Hitoshi just can't see as much as Izuku can. "It's just practice," Izuku had responded, blush deep and high on his cheeks when Hitoshi first said as much to him. But Hitoshi knows better now. Izuku's smart, full stop. He's observant, full stop. It's scary and concerning, fucking brilliant, and Hitoshi's really, really glad that Izuku's in his corner, because damn if he never wants that sort of power turned on him. Especially for the analysis of his brainwashing, that shit's useful as hell. Just in the time they've known each other, all of 3 months, Hitoshi has found out more about his quirk from Izuku than he was able to discover on his own in 13 years. He had a time limit of 10 minutes before the effects of his quirk naturally would disappear from his target, though there is a possibility of building that duration. He cannot make the target do anything beyond their normal physical capabilities. Izuku cannot do a backflip, and apparently that had been a hilarious discovery. They also found out that physical pain can break a target out of his control. This was discovered during a controlled session with Aizawa present. And just the analysis and help with his quirk would be enough, more than enough, for Hitoshi to swear fealty to Izuku for the rest of his life, but on top of that he's nice, and he cares, and he listens. It's not fair that the world decided to wait nearly 14 years, 14 awful, terrible, painful years, before giving him a friend like Izuku, but at least Izuku seems to be trying to make up for lost time. When they reach the house, Izuku pulls back and lets Hitoshi go first, unlocking the door and stepping in to make room for Izuku. "I'm home," he calls, even though his dad is sitting on the sofa in clear view of the front door, and Ryota is sitting on the floor with Haruki. "Welcome home," his mom calls from somewhere out of sight, likely in the kitchen. "Is Izuku with you?" Hitoshi's about to open his mouth to respond, but Izuku beats him to it. "I'm here, Keita-san. Thank you for letting me come over." Laughter filters into the house as Hitoshi leads the way further in. "You don't have to thank me," she calls back, voice preceding her as she finally steps into view. Her eyes soften at the two of them as she reaches forward to pull Hitoshi into a hug. "I know I said it this morning already, but happy birthday, Hitoshi." In front of most people, Hitoshi would feel embarrassed by his mom's affection, but he's seen Izuku seek out comfort from both Aizawa-san and Hisashi-san, so Hitoshi doesn't mind. He sinks into his mom's hug, just resting there for a moment. "Thanks, Mom." And she ruffles his hair, and the spell is broken. He yelps and pulls away, hand raising up to protect his hair. Beside him, Izuku breaks out into giggles that he tries and fails to hide behind his hand. Hitoshi glares at him. "Some of us have to work to get our hair to defy gravity. We can't all be blessed to have clouds on top of our heads." Izuku, still laughing, shoves at Hitoshi's shoulder. "Shut up. Your hair is cool, and you know I don't want mine to be this fluffy." Yeah, he does know that. More than once, Izuku has expressed a desire to get his hair cut. Once on a Friday night, when they were exhausted from training and on the verge of sleep, Izuku brought it up that it always feels like there's a hand in his hair. He didn't say anything else, and Hitoshi decided not to mention again, fairly sure that Izuku never would have divulged that information at all if he hadn't been so worn down, but Hitoshi had cornered Maki as soon as possible to ask if she would cut Izuku's hair, and she'd been delighted at the prospect. "Come on," he says, walking around his mom toward the living room. Izuku follows a few steps behind and then stops, looking up at Hitoshi's mom. "Keita-san, do you want any help in the kitchen?" When Hitoshi and his siblings do something nice like that, his mom usually reaches out to ruffle their hair. He can see her hand twitch with the instinct to do so now, but Hitoshi's made sure to explain to everyone that Izuku really doesn't like to be touched, and she keeps her hands to herself. Her smile is warm, though, even as she shakes her head. "Thank you for asking, but I've got it. Most of the preparations are done already." "It's just Oyakadon," Hitoshi says, making his emotions obvious as he reaches toward Izuku. When he doesn't move away or tense up, Hitoshi grabs him by the arm and pulls him into the house. They bypass the living room with a promise that they'll be back soon and walk up the stairs to Hitoshi's bedroom. "You forgot to bring a change of pants, right?" Hitoshi asks, side-eyeing Izuku for a moment to see if he responds wordlessly. Izuku blushes and turns away. "I can just wear this. I've got a shirt on under the tunic, and it's the weekend, so I can wash the pants if they get dirty." Hitoshi shrugs. "Whatever you're comfortable with, but you can borrow a pair of jeans if you want. I'm sure as hell not wearing this shit any longer than I have to." He's already unbuttoning the tunic as he talks, flinging it into the laundry bin as soon as he can. He can hear Izuku walking around behind him, slowly looking over the art on his walls, the knickknacks that he's collected and found sitting on shelves in pawn shops and side street stores. Izuku's been in here before, of course, the few times he's come over to study for a test or work on a joint project for class, but they were always on a time limit, so Hitoshi doesn't think Izuku's ever had a chance to look around properly. When he finishes changing, his gakuron swapped out for a loose t-shirt and paint-stained jeans, he turns around to find Izuku staring at the largest art piece in the room. His tunic's off and slung over a shoulder, and the shirt he's been wearing under it is long-sleeved and a gold color that reminds Hitoshi of Hisashi-san's hair and Aizawa-san's goggles. "You know," he says, staying on this side of the room with his hands in his pockets just in case this is a fragile topic, "I've never seen you in anything with short sleeves." Which is surprising to Hitoshi. Honestly, it's July already, and it's hot outside, and the warehouse has literally no ventilation. Izuku turns his body just a bit, just enough that he can see Hitoshi even though his eyes stay on the painting. "I have scars above my elbows." Izuku's voice is soft, like he's not sure if he should be admitting this at all. "Sometimes they peek out under short sleeves, so I try not to wear them if I'm around people." There are a lot of things that Hitoshi wants to say to that, things like, "Who hurt you?" and "Is this why you flinch away from touches?" and "I promise I won't think of you any differently. Can you show me?" But he doesn't say any of that. He doesn't think he can. His throat has gone awfully dry. Instead, he brings up his hands. "Are you okay?" He signs, waiting to step closer, not sure if he should. Izuku turns a smile to Hitoshi, catching the sign and clearly grateful for it. "I am now," he signs back, hands moving confidently. "It took a while, but yeah, I'm okay. I'll tell you about it sometime." He turns back to the painting, eyes tracking the lines and colors for a moment before he clears his throat. "I didn't know you were an artist." he says, voice filling the space around them, ridding the room easily of any tension and doubt. Hitoshi walks up beside him, keeping a little distance between his arm and Izuku's. He clears his throat, too, out of embarrassment more than a need to convince himself to speak again. I like art. It's relaxing. This said, despite the fact that a lot of the artwork in his room is full of angry lines and dark colors. It's really good, Izuku says, reaching up to trace his fingertip over Hitoshi's signature on the canvas. Will you paint me something for my next birthday? I don't care what it is. God, and how is he supposed to say no to that? Even if Hitoshi wanted to say no, and he definitely doesn't, he doubts he'd ever be able to, not in the face of Izuku's earnest expression and soft voice. Yeah, Hitoshi agrees, voice kind of croaking out of him. Fuck, not cool. Yeah, I'll paint you something. For Christmas, not his birthday, because Christmas is sooner and he wants to get started on this as soon as possible. He'll come up with something, in the next few months for sure. Izuku turns a smile up at him, and the next thing Hitoshi knows, he's being wrapped in a hug. Izuku's strong arms banded around his shoulders and pulling him down. Immediately, greedily, Hitoshi hugs him back. You're the best, Izuku says, strong and sure, in Hitoshi's ear. Thank God they're hugging, because Hitoshi's positive that his face turns bright fucking red at that. I think we'll have to agree to disagree, he says, this time thankfully without a crack in his voice. With an amused hum, Izuku pulls away. Fine, fine. We should go back downstairs, though. This is supposed to be like family time for you. I have family time every day, Hitoshi says, but he does turn around and lead the way down the stairs and into the living room. Haruki is sitting on the sofa next to their dad, flowers of varying colors blooming in her hands. Izu-chan! She waves at Izuku, which makes some of the flowers fall out of her hand. Can I put flowers in your hair? Izuku walks over to the sofa and sits down on the floor in front of it, legs crossed and back straight. How about I show you how to make flower crowns, and then you can give me the one that you make? Haruki squeals in excitement and nods. Clapping her hands together, Hitoshi takes a seat on the sofa beside her, but keeps an eye on Izuku, watching as he takes the flowers that Haruki gives him and treats them carefully, irreverently. Hitoshi is, in a word, transfixed at the way he weaves the stems together, explaining what he's doing and pausing to help Haruki weave her own. He doesn't notice Ryota near him until he hears his brother whispering in his ear. Good for you, Toshi. Face flushing because he knows exactly what this demon of a brother is implying, Hitoshi quickly swats his hand out and smacks him in the arm. Ryota yelps and then laughs as he dances away, a teasing light still glittering in his eyes. Shut up, Hitoshi hisses, because yeah, okay, sue him, maybe he has a big fat crush on Izuku, but he doesn't need Izuku to know that. They've only been friends for 3 months. He's Hitoshi's first friend ever. He's not about to ruin this just because he's gay and apparently starved for attention. Sure, Ryota says, placatingly putting his hands up. He tilts his head, and one of his dangly piercings sways from his ear. There's a shit-eating grin on his face, but at least he sounds genuine when he says, I just want you to know that I support you is all. Oh, go fuck yourself, Hitoshi says, flipping him off. The door opens and Maki enters the house, interrupting Ryota's laughter with a call of, I made it! Oh! His mom's voice floats from the kitchen. Just in time, dinner's almost done, everyone. Hitoshi turns his attention back to the living room, noticing his dad's eyes on him but not wanting to deal with any more knowing looks at the moment. Instead, he watches as Izuku helps Haruki tie her flower crown together. She squeals with delight once it's done, and Izuku graciously bows his head down so that she can place it on top of his curls. God, and Hitoshi can't get enough of the color of Izuku's hair, black like ink, and tinted green like the sky before a typhoon. It's not fair. And then Izuku turns those eyes on him, big and round and the exact same color as his hair, and Hitoshi wants to melt right into the sofa. Fuck Ryota for being right, the bitch. Izuku holds up the flower crown that he had made, which Hitoshi had originally assumed was going to be for Haruki, but now he can see is too big for her. Do you want this one? He asks as he shows it off. Hitoshi feels himself blush, but he doesn't look away. No idea how you're going to get that over my hair, he says, as steady of a voice as possible. How'd you even learn to make these? Laughing, Izuku stands up and walks around the back of the sofa. Hizashi taught me last summer, he says, as if that explains everything. It does. And it's fine. I tied it together pretty loose. I'll just undo it and then retie it around your head. No perfectly gelled hair will be harmed or flattened in the process. Better not, Hitoshi warns, though he doesn't mean it. He feels the circlet of flowers lower onto his head and closes his eyes as it shifts around while Izuku's fingers carefully tied back together. When he hears Izuku step away, he opens his eyes again. Done? Done. Izuku comes back into view with a smile that dominates his face. Hitoshi pokes his cheek. You really are like a glow stick. You sure you don't have some secondary quirk as a nightlight or something? He grins as Izuku breaks off into a fit of giggles, playfully swatting Hitoshi's hand away. Oi! Maki's back into the room from wherever she disappeared to, probably dropping off her work stuff in her room. Food's ready, let's go, losers, and Haruki and Dad, she tacks on as an afterthought, waving her hand in a big motion like she's trying to herd them. Dinner is delicious and amazing and loud. Maki talks about her day at the salon and her few regulars who had brought her coffee or tea as a surprise when they came in. Mom says it was a slow day at the clinic, but she got a lot of paperwork done. Dad finally slept more than 2 hours thanks to Maki using her quirk on him before she left for the day, and Ryota is deep in a rather one-sided conversation with Izuku about metal bands and piercings and tattoos, how caring for body art is annoying but worth it. Haruki pokes Hitoshi in the arm and says, Your flowers are pretty. Hitoshi smiles at her. Thank you. You did a very good job with Izuku's too. She preens under the compliment, making Hitoshi laugh softly and ruffle her hair. He loves his family. He has no idea what he's done to deserve them. After dinner is cake and then presents, Hitoshi finds himself with new art supplies, not the useless starter packs that he used to get, but the actual paints that he had requested last month, and new canvases as well from his parents and 2 tubs of really nice hair gel from his siblings. Last is Izuku's present, a small box wrapped so nicely that Hitoshi feels bad for ripping the paper. Underneath the careful wrapping, he finds a velvety jewelry box, and Hitoshi's heart beats so fucking fast that he's sure everyone can hear it. Inside of the box, resting on an equally velvety pillow, he finds a delicate silver chain with 2 pendants resting in the loop of it. One is circular, and encases a brilliant set of green jewels. The other is round-cornered, a diamond engraved with partners in crime. He looks up at Izuku, finding his eyes easily in the sea of his family. There's a shy smile on Izuku's face and a light blush on his cheeks. I don't... Hitoshi tries for words, but can't find any that measure up to just how much he's feeling right now. I have the matching set, Izuku says, pulling a silver chain out from where it had been tucked and hidden under his shirt collar. On it dangles the same 2 pendants, differing only in the fact that the jewels on Izuku's pendants are purple. We already got detention together, so I felt like it suited us. If Hitoshi hadn't already been completely gone for Izuku, he certainly would be now. Can I hug you? He asks. He hasn't felt so close to tears in a long time. Izuku nods, shifts up to his knees as Hitoshi dives off the couch and smothers his friend in a hug. He grips the back of Izuku's shirt tightly, holding him close and not wanting to let go. Never in his wildest dreams did he imagine himself having a friend, let alone someone as amazing as Izuku. It's too much, but he feels like he'll never get enough. Do you like it? Izuku asks, muffled against Hitoshi's shoulder. Hitoshi leans back and smiles so wide it hurts. He nods, quickly pulling the chain over his head. It's long, and the pendants drop to his chest, and the weight is perfect. I'm never taking this off. Izuku laughs then, nervousness bleeding from him in the wake of pure delight. You should when you shower, at least. It's not like I could afford real silver. He's smiling at Hitoshi like he's hung the fucking stars, when in reality Hitoshi's obviously correct opinion, it's the other way around. He wants to say thank you again, over and over, until Izuku understands just how much a gift like this means to him, but Maki butts in before he's able. Presents are done, so Izuku's mine now for the next 20 minutes, she proclaims, getting to her feet from the floor and motioning with her hands that Izuku should follow. Up, you can come back once your hair is cut, but I'm not letting you leave this time without me hacking away those curls. 2 emotions pass over Izuku's face in rapid succession, hesitancy first, and then eagerness. Hitoshi nudges their knees together and puts his hands up to sign. Do you want me to come with you? He understands that a haircut means having Maki's hands on him where he can't see, and having the hair clipper against his head, things that might be too much too soon. But Izuku shakes his head, all trepidation gone. He's just excited. I'm okay, he signs. Thank you. He bounces to his feet, takes a step toward Maki, and then pauses and turns back to Hitoshi. Gently, Izuku takes the flower crown off his head and hands it to Hitoshi. Out loud, he says, I leave this in your care. It's Hitoshi's turn to laugh, a quiet chuckle that starts in his chest and stays there. I'll guard it with my life. When Izuku and Maki disappear, shutting themselves in the bathroom, the living room goes quiet for a moment as Hitoshi stares at the flower crown in his lap and gently runs his fingers over the pendants against his chest. Eventually, the television gets turned on to distract Haruki from turning into a demon child, and Hitoshi returns to his previous spot on the sofa. His dad throws an arm around Hitoshi's shoulders, pulling him in with a squeeze, and Hitoshi goes easily. The minutes pass by, but soon enough Maki is returned to the living room, Izuku not at her side. When Hitoshi sits up straight and frowns at her, she brushes aside his worry with a wave of her hand. "If you notice the tattoo, no you don't." She signs to the room at large, face serious for a moment in a way that stomps out Hitoshi's curiosity immediately. He wants to grill his sister for information. Did she fucking tattoo his best friend while they were in the bathroom? But from the look on her face and the minute tension in her hands, Hitoshi assumes that this is something that she discovered, asked about, and was met with some sort of trauma response akin to flinching away from the touch. So fine, Hitoshi won't bring it up. He doesn't doubt that, given enough time, Izuku will tell him just about anything. Maki clears her throat and fixes her face far away from seriousness and into something genuinely pleased. "Now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the haircut 2 months in the making." Ryota dutifully takes up a drum roll against the coffee table. "Izuku, come on out." Hands tucked behind his back, Izuku peeks around the corner and then walks out into view. The sides of his head and the back, Hitoshi thinks, but it's hard to tell from this angle, have been shaved down, though not quite as short as Ryota's hair. The top of his head had been left about half the full length that it was before, but it's still gravity-defying and fluffy, appearing darker than usual with less of a green shine reflected in the lights. It fits his muscular shoulders and badass fighting style way better than the cloud of curls he's been sporting since Hitoshi had met him. Ryota wolf whistles, and Izuku blushes. For a moment his eyes scan the room, taking in the encouragement that Hitoshi's family is more than happy to give him. Inevitably, Izuku finally finds Hitoshi's stare on him, and he takes a step forward that looks involuntary at first. "Stop getting ideas, he's just your friend, you don't know if he likes you." Then he becomes more intentional with the farther he walks, until he comes to a stop in front of Hitoshi and looks down at him. "What do you think?" he asks. Hitoshi can tell by the way Izuku's arms are shifting that he's probably stimming behind his back right now, fingertips touching his thumbs like they so often do. Is it weird that he knows that about Izuku already? Is it weird that he pays so much attention? He hasn't been asked to stop yet, though, so Izuku can't mind too much. He'd punched Tomino in the face on his very first day at school. Hitoshi kind of doubts that Izuku has a problem expressing when he doesn't like something. But none of that really matters. Izuku just wants honesty. "You're too high up," he complains, reaching his hand up only halfway and making a small grabbing motion. Izuku laughs like it's punched out of him, like tension and nerves had been choking him, and now he's not sure what to do with amusement. "You're just too used to me being short," Izuku says, but he kneels in front of the sofa anyway. "What are you going to do when I hit a growth spurt at 16 and suddenly shoot up past you?" "Not going to happen," Hitoshi says dismissively, though a small smile slips his way onto his face. He lifts the flower crown that had been entrusted to him and sets it gently on top of Izuku's head. "There. Perfect." "Yeah?" Izuku's glowing again, happiness converted into light in a way that makes Hitoshi both want to shield his face and turn toward him like a sunflower to the sun. He nods, swallowing thickly and trying to pretend he's not as affected as he is. "Yeah, it suits you." Izuku just smiles. When they leave the house a half-hour later, Hitoshi's overnight bag slung over his shoulder, both of their flower crowns entrusted to Haruki for safekeeping, everything is calm. Hitoshi's necklace is tucked into his shirt, the pendants a reassuring presence against his skin. Izuku is being quiet, but that's not anything new. He often fluctuates between dead silence, low murmuring, and talking at a relatively normal volume and speed. Hitoshi is used to all of them by now. Still, when they're halfway to the train station, he can't help but reach over to get Izuku's attention. He twists his torso so that they're facing better and signs. "If you're still anxious about that haircut, it really does look nice. I wouldn't lie to you." "No, no," Izuku says, blushing and waving his hands as if warding off Hitoshi's compliments and concern. "No, it's not that. He sighs, turning to face forward again. "I'm just thinking about what I said in your room, about telling you everything." He laughs, and it's just as strained and anxious as the hand he raises to rub the back of his head. I don't want you to hate me, or be scared of me. In the middle of Hitoshi reaching out to comfort, to reassure, to insist that there is nothing in the world Izuku could do that would scare Hitoshi away, Izuku freezes. He comes up short in the middle of the empty sidewalk, shoulders tense and hands moving into loose fists, head up and eyes wide. Whatever he sees, Hitoshi doesn't, but he immediately drops into a ready stance too. "What is it?" he whispers, suddenly not trusting any shift in the wind. For a few tense moments, Izuku doesn't respond. He just stands and breathes slowly, eyes moving around the area as he tries to pinpoint whatever had set him on edge. Hitoshi doesn't see anything, and apparently neither does Izuku, because he relaxes out of a fighting stance and lets out a long breath. I thought I saw... Oh, there you are, 15. The new voice is sickeningly sweet and so close. When the fuck had he gotten so close? Hitoshi whips around to find the speaker, but his eyes get caught on Izuku instead, who's frozen like a rabbit in headlights, fight or flight completely forgotten in the face of fear. No, Izuku whispers, shaking his head back and forth and sounding so small. No, you're supposed to be... Nezu said. You think a high school principal has enough sway to catch me? Why don't you and your new friend just come along quietly? It doesn't sound like a question. Hitoshi's just about to yell at whoever the hell this guy is when something slams into his temple, and Hitoshi knows only darkness. All right, everyone. This concludes Chapter 15 of Soul of the Stars. Chapter 16 will be next. I hope you all are still enjoying, and as always, thank you so much for listening.